Live your life, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Yeah, rear naked choke of Cocker Spaniel, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Change the neighborhood up.
Conspiracy Farm. Go. Check it out.
All right, here we go from cold Iowa, bringing you a new guest here on the Conspiracy Farm. We're really happy to be back. We had to rebrand and go back to the old name. People were a little confused by the name that we were using. But Jeff, the farm's back, buddy.
We missed our girl, baby. We're back with our true love. That's what it is. You know, like I said the other day, we went out and tried to date a little bit, but we're back with our true love. And I'm really stoked to talk to our gentleman today. He's, back to the farm. He was a big, faithful farmer back in the day. Like I was just saying before we went on, like he's got a very deep resume, and I'm really excited to talk about what he's gotten into lately. It's reminiscent of a conversation we had with one of our other guests, Mr. Nicholas Spahn, who's another really cool individual. But I think this conversation about, mental health and how to get to our best level and the kind of ways to, and I don't want to use these kind of words pejoratively, but to way the kind of hot brain to rewrite the unconscious, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to get all into it. Yeah. Cody Vidal is our guest tonight. Former fighter.
Let me give him kind of a proper, as far as his credentials. He's a hell of a mixed martial arts fighter, training for bare knuckle now. Master builder of multi-million-dollar outdoor landscapes for Hollywood elites and, sports stars and all kinds of stuff. He's got basically royal lineage in his blood, and he's got an amazing level of historic knowledge, and also a master of hypnotherapy, which I've already experienced. So, yes, Cody, welcome.
Thanks for having me, boys. I love the podcast. I love all what you guys are always about. Wilson, Miletich, you guys have been pioneers for truth for such a long time, and it's good to have men like Pat, who are fighters, who fight for the truth, fight for what's good, because society likes to look at strong men, especially nowadays, and try to demean them and demoralize them and say, oh, they're evil, they're this word I will not use. It begins with a T and sounds like sick at the end. But ultimately, whenever you want to focus on a leader, at least when I want to focus on a leader, I want to focus on someone that I know can have my back. I want to focus on someone that can lead me in the right direction, not just in the good, but in the bad times, through the darkness, through the mud, if you will. And that guy is definitely Pat. I grew up watching Pat Miletich fighting systems, had all the UFC champions at that time. Pat is actually the first welterweight UFC champion in history, and he went on to coach gentlemen like Robbie Lawler, Tim Sylvia, Matt Hughes, and those guys are all warriors in their own right. So with having said that, seeing Pat Miletich being a fighter for truth, that is awesome, because once you hang up the gloves, people forget about you really quickly. But the real ones, they'll always remember you. And, hey, man, at the end of the day, having the fighting spirit, that is what drives us forward through this world of corruption and enables us to truly live with purpose. And so Pat's a man of purpose, and so are you, Mr. Wilson. So it's exactly why I am so happy to be here on the show today to talk about hypnosis and other topics. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Cody. I really appreciate your kind words. I was on Facebook today, and I just want to get this out of the way. So a memory came up from 3 years ago, January 23rd, 2020. And this is what I had posted. The coronavirus was created in a laboratory and has had a patent for several years now. It's been around long enough that they'll miraculously come up with a vaccine very soon. Starting to catch on yet? And then I looked at the comments on there, and a doctor from my area, his first name's George, that's all I'll say, said, man, it must be hard living, like everything's a conspiracy. And so 3 years later, I commented below that, and I tagged him, and I said, this did not age well, did it, George? And, so I don't want vindication. I don't want anything out of this. I want people to just start defending their children the right way by just peaceful non-compliance, right?
Exactly. And you know what? I actually remember that post.
Yeah.
I remember thinking to myself, I hope Pat slaps this guy.
It's been maddening. It's been maddening over the last 3 years dealing with these folks. And certainly he hasn't commented back after I said, I posted that or commented this morning and tagged him. So he knows. And when he goes to look at it, he's got nothing left to say. He's just got nothing left to say. Now, they don't. They have to. They were the professionals. They were the experts. What is going on, right?
Well, if you want me to add to that, well, let Jeff talk about it.
Go for it. Go for it, Cody.
Well, look, Pat knows this. You know this. There's information that does not get out to the public immediately. For example, the military. I remember being told this in the 90s or in the early 2000s. The military's technology is 40 years ahead of our own knowledge of it. And that was years ago. The technology that they have now is probably actually expanded. So before we recognize what kind of technology they have, there's already so many secrets hidden under the rug. There is no way anybody's going to tell me that was an accident. In fact, you guys had that female reporter with the Bulgarian or Russian or Turkish.
Ilyana Gatancheva.
Yeah, she went around and documented all the bioweapons labs all across the world. These are ran by the globalists who create these viruses, and they create these viruses for population control, just like they put poison in the food and in the water. It's to cause population control. And so when you want to talk about hypnosis is creating a problem which causes fear, controlling the masses with the fear, and then anybody that questions it, tell them, no, they're the crazy one. Fuck you. We're the crazy ones because we want to be healthy. You talk about taking care of your kids. My kid's homeschooled. I'll never put my kid in school. And people say, well, what about his social interactions? That's why he goes to jiu-jitsu. That's why he does gymnastics. That's why he does this and that. He doesn't need to go learn in a setting with other people. I will teach my child how to be an entrepreneur. I will teach my child that he is a human soul, that he is a conscious being, not a flesh pot walking around that can be microchipped and pretty much used for whatever the government wants to use him for. That's wrong. So going back to what I was originally saying, I lived with a man named Todd Williams. How you doing? I'll send this link to you. You'll love this one. Todd is an ex-corpsman, okay? Ex-corpsman. And he had a bunch of gentlemen that were his friends, ex-DEA, ex-military, ex-police. They're all older. And they joined together and they created a constitutionalist militia. A constitutionalist militia. Oh, that sounds terrible. No, that's a group of men who come together who know the Constitution. They can recite it. And then on top of that, they know how to defend every single one of their rights, including your rights. So with that said, these men are always looking into the information that is swept under the rug. And they gave me a packet about this big, and they started talking about aliens and this and that. And hey, I'm open-minded to all kinds of topics. So I was kind of weary of it first. I didn't read it right away. It wasn't until I moved out that I moved out of this place to Huntington Beach from Temecula, California. And I actually started reading through this. And it said on this page, this is before coronavirus, it said on this page, it said a list of events in 2019 that are coming. And I was given this paper in September 2018, right? On that list, it said there will be a MERS coronavirus released in the first quarter of 2019. It said that FEMA is getting ready for an imminent attack. It also mentioned on there that a world catastrophe was going to happen. Now, simultaneously around that same time, I had a physical therapist working on me. He told me about the act between Trump and China, the treaty that they signed, that Trump had China sign. And the reason why Trump was able to, and you put parentheses because I don't believe anything anymore, but the reason why Trump was able to get China to sign this is because if you look on one of the pages towards the end of this 80-some page report, it says that All of these agreements become null and void during a global catastrophe. So our economy spiked after that was signed, and then our economy dropped right after that virus was released. Coincidence? I think not.
Right. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I'm just a lot going on, man. So much going on. I mean, Pat and I were having a private conversation today, but I mean, we were just kind of voicing each other's frustration on whatever it is that's going on right now with with the vaccine and obvious admissions now from the CDC and NIH that blood clots might be happening with people over 60. We know what that really means. They got to make, in a few years, it'll be down to whatever. They're slowly admitting to us what we already freaking knew. And, I don't know, if every single, people have died suddenly throughout history. I get this, but I'm just saying from what I'm hearing from like morticians, life insurance agents and doctors, and this whole thing with the die suddenly, these fiber strands these white fiber strands that are coming up in people's bodies when, morticians try to embalm them, they can't embalm them. And I'm just going to say this again, and I probably have already said this already, but there's 8 billion motherfuckers on this planet. Me personally, I've seen a dude who just got his last shot fall out right in front of me, 30-some years old. Went into a seizure. I'm sitting here trying to console him because it was just me and him, and he falls out. This guy gets airlifted to, which, if people don't know, Iowa City is like a massive kind of trauma hospital. And he's 30-something years old, dude. He had a chunk of his skull removed, and he's now in, like, whatever it is.
Care facility.
Living.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
For now the rest of his life. I have a cousin who's a year older. I'm sorry, a cousin who's a year older than me. 2 weeks ago, massive blood clot, created this stroke. Couldn't operate on it, and he wound up dying a few days later after he was on life support. And there's been a few other things between my family members and friends that just I've seen. And so I said to the camp, I'm like, bro, you imagine the real fucking numbers right now? Out of 8 billion people, how many of this is and they're actually starting to kind of admit it. And I know we can't ever sue the pharmaceutical companies for, that was laws passed in the 90s, I believe, if I'm incorrect, that you can't sue these guys for any adverse reactions. But even the normies, quote unquote normies, are starting to see it. So I'm actually anxious to see the mental gymnastics that go down that a friend of mine today, I won't mention his name, the most fittest motherfucker, former Marine, rides his bike, runs all the time. Luckily, blood clot in his leg and go bad, but why are these clots all of a sudden accumulating in everyone and causing sometimes death? It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, to the point that, a Canadian news broadcast that I picked up on, somebody had posted, and they said, they're normalizing what they call clot season that follows the flu season. They call it clot.
Yes, I saw that today too. I've never heard that in my life. So, stroke season too. Yeah.
Yeah. Stroke season. Yeah. So I'm just sitting there going, and I was on a podcast from Canada. It's a sports podcast, and one of the hosts, who's in his 30s, said he's had right around, what would he say, 25 blood clots since he got the injections. 25 blood clots at 35 years old. It will not stop. These people, unless they learn how to clean their blood and their cells out with powerful antioxidants. They're not gonna, it's just, they can give you blood thinners all they want. I don't know if I don't know. It doesn't seem to be working for a lot of these people. But you've got to put substances into your body that are going to drag the heavy metals and toxins out of your body, period. So, I'm not going to say what specific products to get. Oh. I'm just telling you that it doesn't come from modern medicine.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, of course. You're the guest.
As we're talking, I said, both of you check your phones right now. Please check your phones in our group message. As we were talking, actually, as I was talking about my friend Todd Williams, that story about the COVID, right? We barely talk anymore. We talk now and then. He messaged me right as I was talking about him, and look what he messaged me about. Todd has been on the forefront of the San Diego education system, fighting the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. He's been fighting it. And look at what is going on. If you look at the message, he's going to be on One American News tomorrow to talk about his fight against the COVID mandate in the San Diego education system. This man is so smart, he actually sues the state all the time. He makes lots of money off of recalls, lawsuits, and everything. Literally, the reason why I bring this up is because whenever I talk to Pat, and I'm not trying to go off subject here, I talk to Pat about alignment. There's spiritual conscious alignment that happens, and this goes into hypnosis. When people are on the same wavelengths, ESP, extrasensory perception, telepathy, all of that happens. And I call them signs, I call them wonders, I call them confirmations. It's real. Literally just talked about him on a podcast. I just talked about Todd Williams on a podcast. We don't talk much. And then he messages me that he's going to be on the One American News podcast tomorrow to talk about exactly what we're talking about right now. Is that a coincidence? I think not.
Serendipity, baby. Serendipity. And I'm all about that, dude. Energy's aligning, whether we can't necessarily see or not. I'm with that shit. I mean, I don't know about the secret and law of attraction, but I think there is something to that, man. You get with the energy, you get in your life the energy you put out. You know, I think there's just something to that shit, in my humble opinion. And I'm no, you know.
So you talk about clock season, right? I want to bring this up, dude. We talk about conspiracies, right? Who's ever seen the photo of Baphomet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Do you guys want me to bring that photo up and explain something to you about Baphomet and blood clots?
Yeah, please do.
I thought about this.
Well, please pull up the one. Please pull up the one that Elon Musk rocked on his little Halloween.
Let me type in Elon Musk.
His costume had Elon Musk Baphomet. It's like he's got it right on his fucking chest, bro.
Yeah, right here. So Elon Musk rocking the Baphomet face right there on the right there. Bingo, right?
Yeah.
Now, I thought about this all on my own. I don't say this to sound egotistical, guys, but I have this intuition that surprises me all the time. Baphomet is obviously a satanic symbol, satanic individual. All right? And I'm going to pull his photo up. Okay? Here's Baphomet. Right? There's Baphomet.
Yep, 2 fingers up, 2 fingers down.
Yeah, Baphomet's got 2 fingers up, 2 fingers down, as above, so below. Right?
Yes, he has breasts. And he has breasts.
Breasts, right? Transgenderism, right? See that staff between his legs? The staff between his legs is the pharmaceutical staff. Now, the word pharmaceutical comes from the word pharmakia, which is Greek for witchcraft, right? Now, you can't see it, but if you look, anybody, just Google Baphomet, Baphomet. If you Google Baphomet, you will see this. On his forearms, think about it. Where do you get syringes? On his forearms, it says dissolva and coagula.
Wow.
Dissolve, your proteins dissolve from the shot, and your blood stacks, coagulation.
Coagulates.
Is that a coincidence? I think not.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. I mean, either way, however you want to cut, you know, I'm saying it's. Pat and I were saying earlier, that level. Will anything happen to anybody? Will there be any trials of anything? Which, I mean, if the information is really put out and collated and understood, it's a lot of these guys. You can't sue these pharmaceutical companies, but a lot of these guys are literally accessories to
mass murder, genocide, crimes against humanity.
I mean, at the most,
say in there. I haven't read through the act. That's what I want. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's important because I keep hearing, we can't file lawsuits. We can't file lawsuits. We can't file lawsuits. What's it say about criminal charges in there? I'd like to get clarification on that from somebody.
Well, you know what my dad always said? My dad, who I was never close with, and I don't mean to talk bad about my dad when I say this, and I'll just say this alone. My dad used to tell me this all the time. He'd say, what mama don't know, can't hurt mama. And the enemy you don't know, how are they going to get punished? The enemy that controls the entire system, that controls the financial system, that keeps us in a state of fear. I can't pay for my bills. We're the only creature on earth that has to pay taxes to fucking live here, and we're the smartest creature on earth. What needs to happen is everybody knows what needs to happen. And saying it gets you criminal charges. But at the end of the day, these people are the mass murderers. These people are the genocidal maniacs, the evil ones that are controlling the world. And how do you hold somebody accountable if they're the ones that control the world?
Well, again, going back to these Nuremberg trial type shit, I was just following the rules. But if we were to apply the same rules as far as like RICO cases, like these entities we're talking about, NIH, CDC, they're running a criminal enterprise. I mean, I know it's different as far as the criteria and what they're doing, but they're literally in the midst of, and they have been for a long time, the midst of literally hurting and killing humanity. And this is just a perfect fucking case for it. But I mean,
largest, most powerful cartels in the world,
without a shadow of a doubt. But I mean, I just want to see like all these people. Like I've always said, man, if you know their names, they're not running shit. I don't give a fuck who they are. Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Fauci, they're all errand boys. They might be rich and powerful errand boys, but they're just errand boys to this larger shit, whatever you want to call it at the top, that's really running shit. That's why all of them are potentially expendable. None of them are untouchable. That's, they start coming at Bill Gates about the Epstein shit. And believe me, hopefully, I mean, whatever, however it teased out, I think they're going to come after Fauci. And they will just be literally sacrificial lambs to appease the crowd, if you will, while the real machinations of all this shit still continue. But I still would love to see some measure of accountability for what the fuck we're about to find out. When we were doing the farm during the COVID, I was like, man, there's going to be a whole fleet of new lawyers, a class of lawyers just going after this shit because it's going to be so bad. And I mean, we just kind of knew it intuitively, but now we're hearing these official channels being like, yeah, we were injecting you with some fuck up shit that could cause a cardiac stroke, aneurysms, all of this. It's next level, dude. It's next level.
Pat, talk about hypnosis, boys. Talk about hypnosis, right? Look at
that's what we're here to talk about.
Look at 9/11, right? Look at 9/11. Check it out. It took what? It took years later for them to apparently kill Osama bin Laden. And after they murdered him, or after they killed him, after the Navy Team SEAL 6 or whatever killed him, right? They didn't produce the body because they wanted to give him an honorable Islamic burial. Get the fuck out of here. You put all of the weight of 9/11 on one guy's back, pretend to kill him later, and then you don't produce the body so the whole world can see it, and then people believe that shit. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, I want to add some validity to what Cody's saying. I mean, there's people out there that, ultimately, I've got a lot of friends who are former Naval Special Forces, right? And a lot of them have said, didn't happen like they're saying. Didn't happen like they're saying. And I've met Robert O'Neill, and it's neither here nor there. I'm not saying one way or another what happened. I'm just saying that there's a lot of guys in that community, and that's a tight-knit community, that have said they don't think it actually happened, that they actually got him.
Yeah, I would believe Santa Claus came down the chimney before I believe that bullshit.
Otherwise, you'd find a headstone somewhere that said Tim Osman on it.
Here's the point I was trying to make. Here's the point I was trying to make.
But I mean, I definitely. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
All I was trying to say is that cause a global catastrophe, cause a genocide, and blame it on one guy, fall guy, kill him, and now everything's okay. Like Epstein didn't kill himself. Is Epstein even fucking dead? Right? So whoever the fall guy is going to be for COVID-19,
he says he's not even dead.
For how not to be, right? And once that person's so-called dead, whether they actually die or not, the whole world is just going to say, okay, we forget about it. When I say the whole world, I mean the masses of people who are under hypnosis of the media that they fucking listen to all the time. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me.
Well, and that's what it seems to have been for so long. We always have to have some boogeyman. Lenin, Stalin, Hitler, Ho Chi Minh, Noriega. I mean, I'm just going through the timeline. Fucking Ayatollah. There's always got to be some boogeyman. And we've always found out that there's always this fucking machinations of just fuckery going on behind the scenes as they present these boogeymans to us and make us, problem, reaction, solution. And going back to what you were saying about fear, we say this all the time. The fear-based trauma-based conditioning that they use on us to, and help us to understand, Cody, how they hijack our mind. Once they, through that initial fear, whether it's Gulf of Tonkin, killing the president, 9/11, or anything, or even COVID more contemporarily, how they freak us the fuck out, and then they brain to get us to do. None of us, a lot of these people just aren't stupid, but they hijack people's brains to go along with some weird fucked up shit. What is that? What is going on? Explain that level of hypnosis that they use, the sophistication of it, if you will.
All right. Here's my little shitty rendition of a head, if you can see it. All right. That's the dude smoking a joint. The dude's smoking a joint because he's high out of his mind, right? Look, right in the front of your brain is your conscious mind. Your conscious mind only represents 5% of your brain activity. Right now, all three of us are consciously on this phone call. Okay? That's only 5% of our brain activity. Now, once you go back towards the back of your mind, you start running through the subconscious. That means you're half awake, half asleep. When you're half awake, you can still respond. You can still learn. Okay? When you're half asleep, you can still cut off all distractions around you. The word meditation means to become familiar with or to learn. That is why the subconscious state is the meditative state. That's the state you want to be in throughout the entire day, so you're in flow mode. However, 95% of the brain is in this unconscious, subconscious state. Unconscious means asleep, right? Now, if I was to put any one of you to sleep, and I was to say over and over and over again, be afraid of this, be afraid of this, be afraid of this. The unconscious mind, which is the majority of your brain, 95% of your brain, doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. Okay? So if I continue to tell you that something is scary, it's going to be scary. Your mind is going to take on that powerful suggestion. It is going to create images in your mind that relate to that fear. It is going to drive behaviors that relate to that fear. And then you get fear-based results based off of a fear-based belief system. Okay? So fear fuels failure. Faith fuels fruit. Faith fuels fruit. They don't want us thinking with faith-based mentalities because then we are strong. Because faith-based mentalities mean we have strong beliefs, strong emotions, which drive strong behaviors, which drive strong results. And we all know that real men are strong and wise and can think for themselves. That's why we are here. We think for themselves. And what I do is I brainwash people to think for themselves.
Brainwash. See, no, I'm sorry.
Let me just say this. Remember when I told you the unconscious mind does not know the difference between reality and fantasy. Everything we create, Jeff, everything we create first begins as a thought in the mind. So the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. Our thoughts create reality. So when we close our eyes and when we think about something for longer than 6 seconds, it becomes a hallucination, a daydream. Okay? So if somebody's constantly telling themselves the same lie over and over again, or the same negative thought, and they're going to continue to feel the same negative emotion, it drives this behavior in this bad habitual system that's created in your mind. And the next thing you know, you don't believe in yourself anymore. You don't want to live anymore. And then you fucking kill yourself, or you go kill somebody, or you just live a miserable life. Now, the same is with the media. They push out fear constantly. They call it fear porn because people are addicted to it. And they don't fucking know it. Because the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. Well, I do. And I make my reality every morning when I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I pray, and I meditate, and I do my breath work, and I do my visualizations, because I'm tapped the fuck out of that system and tapped into my own fucking system, my mind, which is my computer.
And that's why the system.
You're a soul. They don't want you to know that you're a conscious being.
They don't. You're right.
They polluted religion and made you think that all religion is bad. Well, guess what? All religion was based off of spirituality, our connection to God. They cut that off for most people, not for me.
Yeah. So when you say faith, that's what I was thinking of. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a particular religion, but a belief in an understanding of something higher than yourself. And again, like you said, that strengthens us as an individual and as a community. And I know they, like you said, they don't want that at all. They want us completely detached from that. That's why, for so many different ways that they've done that. It's don't call me, text me. It's like human interaction anymore almost frowned upon. That's why the mask thing really exacerbated that shit. And that's why I'm saying it's like, so much of our communication anymore is text and emojis or whatever, as opposed to like, let me call Cody, see what's up with my boy. Let me call Pat, see what's up with my boy. Let me hear his voice, talk to him, interact with him.
So when I say faith, Pat knows this. When I say faith, I'm not talking about religion. Faith is believing in the unseen. Close your eyes and you can picture what your goals look like. You can picture you achieving your goal, and you can actually feel the emotion of that. And when you do that over and over and over and over and over again, what you do is you actually empower yourself to do that. You have faith in your vision. Okay? That's why my company's name is called Vital Visions. Visions that are important to you. And your vision, every one of you that are watching this, you, Jeff, you, Pat, everybody of you are watching, your inner vision is what creates the reality around you. So when they put a program on television, just know that they're trying to tell a vision.
Right. Well, and when you talk about religion, we know that, certain religions, through research have been hijacked. And I'll just give the example, because I was raised a Catholic, that the Jesuits within the Catholic religion have been banned in countries. I mean, they're not allowed in certain countries. I mean, they don't want them there. They know what they're all about. The Catholic religion owns the most real estate in the world. They are also the most prolific, group of rapists ever created. I mean, it's fact. I mean, there's between 8,000 to 10,000 priests minimum with files for molesting, boatloads of children. It's awful what's going on. Now, I'm not telling people that the Catholic religion, many of the priests or most of the followers obviously aren't bad people. But what I'm saying is that people have to take a step back and understand, there's a black pope, there's a white pope, there's a gray pope, all of that stuff does exist. And that, when we talk about, black nobility, that, some of those families have actually been popes. I mean, it's just fact. That's the way it is. And that's just one of the religions. So, but Jesus, he's acknowledged by the Islamic religion as being a prophet. Whether you believe he was who he said he was and who many say he was, you still have to acknowledge there's so many works of literature about him during his life, and from the 12 followers that were with him and all the books and all the other stuff. It's really interesting because he was a guy that was against organized religion. He was the dude in the temple when one of the head priests, or the head priest, basically questioned him on whether he was going to pay taxes to Caesar or not. And so Jesus tricked him, and he said, well, give me, do you have a Roman coin on you? And the high priest reached into his robe and pulled a coin out with Caesar's face on it. That was not allowed in the temple. You could not have currency in the temple of the Roman Empire. It was forbid. And Jesus tricked him deliberately. And then Jesus said, give to Caesar what he deserves. That's his money. That's not God's, but, basically give to God what is his, and that's our soul. Right. And so he really put it on him. But again, he was the guy chasing people out of the temples with a bullwhip and everything else. He wasn't about organized religion. So people, when you hear, Christianity, and there's all these different forms of Christianity, that's not what Jesus was about. Jesus wasn't about organized religion, but he was about connecting with God.
Exactly.
Well, and before you answer, Cody, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I've always just found it fascinating because I'm not particularly religious, but I think Jesus, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but if he did exist, I believe he was a product of what we've often talked about, like ancient cultures that had different technologies that we just don't have anymore. When you go back to your ancient mystery schools, I believe he was very affluent to a lot of those teachings, as was, I believe like John the Baptist or like Melchizedek, the Zoroastrian kind of priest or whatever. There was ancient stuff that these guys were tapped into that, in my one of the reasons why they had to get rid of him, because he was just almost like any other person or leader in society that they want to get rid of because they're a threat to the social order. I believe Jesus was that if he did exist, like I said, because he was tapping into something that they did not want your normal plebs of the world to tap into. But I could be completely wrong. But go ahead, Cody. I'm sorry.
Pat brought up a very interesting point. So I have Catholicism in my family on my dad's side. I was not raised religious. I'm a very spiritual person because God has shown himself to me in many different ways. And they're all through spiritual signs, wonders, miracles, confirmations, I call them. And oftentimes they happen even with my friends around or my family members around. Sometimes they have them happen with themselves too. And so nobody's ever told me to believe in God. I believed in God because they told me to. I don't believe in God for any other reason than God has proven himself to me. And I'm thankful for that. Not everybody has that same experience. And if they do, maybe they're not privy to it. Maybe they're not open-minded to it. But I always want to mention this. When it comes to Catholicism, and Pat mentioned that most religions have been perverted. Yes, if you're the devil and you're the king of deception, what are you going to do? Are you going to just allow religions to defeat you because they believe in God? Or are you going to go in there, you're going to pervert it, separate them, cause division, make them at war, and then sit back and watch it all happen? Of course that's what you're going to do, right? You don't just go attack your enemy straight on. You don't do that. And if you do it, you don't do it repetitively because you set a pattern, and that pattern can be countered. It's like a guy going out there and jabbing and just jabbing and just jabbing and just jabbing and just jabbing and putting nothing behind the jab and not moving his head and not stepping around. He's going to get fucking countered, right? All war is based on deception, right? So if all war is based on deception and the devil is the one that causes war, or evil is what causes war, whatever you want to think and whatever you want to feel about that, then it only makes sense to use deception. So here's the deception, right? Here's the deception. The IRS is not a United States government agency. Okay? And the IRS has a code book. I think it's called the IRC. I could be wrong. But I have read that code book. And in the code book, it says that the only people in America who need to pay taxes, the only people in America who need to pay taxes are United States citizens. So the definition of a United States citizen in that code book is someone who holds public office. Do you hold public office, Jeff? Do you hold public office, Pat? Do any of you hold public office? I don't. So theoretically, or actually technically, literally, you guys don't have to pay taxes. But as soon as you file to pay taxes, now you are held responsible because you put your signature on the paper. There's a reason why we must sign away our life. Because we have free will and God knows that. And the only way you can sell your soul is if you agree to do it, or consciously or unconsciously agree to do it. Now, ultimately, the IRS is owned by the IMF. What's the IMF? The IMF is the International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund. So the IRS is not a United States government agency, yet it taxes the fuck out of America. Now, the IRS is owned by the IMF, International Monetary Fund. So who owns the IMF? The Vatican. The Vatican. Why? Who owns the Vatican? The bankers. And who created the banking systems, Pat? Who created the banking systems, Pat?
Well, I would believe that would be the same bloodlines that have always been in control of the planet.
Rothschilds.
Well,
Rothschilds.
there's people above the Rothschilds though. There's people above.
But I'm saying they're the full guys. So check this out.
Without a doubt, man. Like I said, if you know their name, they ain't running shit.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, but let me point this out. Have you guys ever seen my posts? I've tagged you guys in it before on Facebook. I think it's a couple of years ago. It was the COVID-19 testing. The COVID-19 test is on the website pubchem.org, which is a government website. Pubchem.org, right? There are patents, government patents on this website. Okay? If you look up the government patent for the COVID-19 test, it was created in October 15th of 2015. And whose name is on the patent? Richard A. Rothschild. So let me tie this together again. The IRS is owned by the IMF. The IMF is owned by the Vatican. And the Vatican is owned by the bankers. And the ones who created the world banking system are the Rothschilds. And they patented the fucking COVID-19 testing. And all of you guys talk.
So there's other Gates had a patent. Yeah.
Yes. Gates had a
Again,
patent.
it's all. I mean, the nuance. It's almost understanding the nuance of it is almost the shit that drives you crazy. But at the end of the day, the moral of the story is the shit's ran by eugenicists who really an absolute contempt for humanity. You have a certain segment of society, whatever percentage it is, these ancient bloodlines who have since Maurice Strong and way back in the fucking day of sterilizing people, et cetera, called eugenics, but they had to make it a little bit more socially palatable, so they morphed it into whatever it is now, demonizing human beings, climate change, you fucking name it. But that's what we're dealing with, dude. That's ultimately what we're dealing with. But it's like going back to, I'm sorry, we bounced all over, and that's why I love being back on the farm, because this is what this shit's all. The hijacking of the mind aspect of it, Cody, and where we're going now. It's, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, when are we going to realize that this is actually happening and people are dropping dead right in front of us, and amongst other threats that we're dealing with? But it's just I guess already kind of answered it, and how they've repetitively told these certain things, and we just take it down in our unconscious mind. But how do we break the spell, dude? It only works as if we comply. Silence, and even silence equals acquiescence. What do we need to do to break the spell, bro?
Pat, what do you think?
Well, I think it comes down to the people that are still believing this, or acting like they're believing it, is because of fear still, of course. So they have to be reprogrammed, deprogrammed, and then reprogrammed using emotion, and that's probably the only way that's going to happen. And there's a lot of people that are still waking up. I mean, I've had people send me messages, and so have you, Jeff, and you probably have too as well, Cody. Of people going, "Wow, this is crazy. I can't believe that I fell for this and everything else." So it's still happening. And I've said before, I may have said it on our podcast, Jeff, that we did yesterday, but it comes down to, the most staunch defenders of freedom of, treatment, freedom of their body, autism, or, body autonomy from, it's my body, I'll do what I want, are people who have seen their children be injured by previous vaccines or themselves have been injured. And so that's all I'm saying, is that those people who are having family members, some of them are not waking up at all. They're going, "Oh my God, my uncle died of a heart attack." They don't put two and two together, but there's a lot of other people who went, they're literally 3 days later, he dropped, right? And then a cousin dropped, and then this person dropped, like you're experiencing, Jeff, but you've been awake the whole time. So I don't know. Not everybody's going to wake up. That's not the way this is supposed to go. And I just have to say, it's God's will, and if we talk again in biblical terms, when we were so-called created in his image, he told the devil, "You can't harm a hair on their head." And so he has to do it by deception. He has to do it by free will. And they create an atmosphere where we turn on each other for stupid reasons, right? The stupidest reasons possible.
Yep. And I think that's exactly why Christ, Yeshua, his name is not Jesus. Yeshua, translated to English, is Joshua, right? Christ Jesus, or Yeshua HaMashiach, the Christ the Savior, he said, "Love one another as I have loved you." That was his final commandment. And how did Christ love us? He came down here, God in the flesh. That's the story, right? And he literally lived a sinless life and lived through all the pain that we would live through and died on the cross to pay for our sins, to set an example. Because it's like, okay, God created us. In the book of Genesis, by the way, Jeff, this is very interesting. They say that God is all powerful, all knowing, and all loving, right? But in the book of Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, which is in Judaism and Christianity, I'm not sure about the Quran because I haven't really read the Quran, but in the book of Genesis, it says that God created man and saw how evil he was. And God had great regret in his heart. And therefore God caused a flood. And the only one he spared was Noah and his lineage, because Noah was a sinless man. Was a very good man, basically. So the God that is all knowing, right? Which I love God, not questioning God. How could God have regret in his heart? If God's creations were perfect, well, maybe God's creation is perfect, but what intervened? There's so many questions when it comes to the origin of man. And you mentioned something earlier. You mentioned something, Jeff, about you don't know if Christ actually existed. Well, there's a guy that was named Christ that actually didn't exist. He fought against. He was revolutionary. He was revolutionary. He went against the Romans. He actually went against the Jews. Okay, the Jays. We should call them the Jays. Sorry about that. He went against the Pharisees. He went against the Pharisees, and they hated him for it, and they persecuted him for it. But he told the truth, and the truth is, love one another. He said, love your enemy. And the reason why he said love your enemy, because the neighbors that we all live with, our brothers and sisters, are all against each other over the deception of evil. So at the end of the day, if somebody tells a lie about you, Jeff, and then I believe that lie, and then I tell that lie to Pat, and now me and Pat don't like you, it's not that we don't like you, it's that we don't like you based on a lie. And therefore, now this lie, this deception, has now caused us this rift, when really all of us are like-minded individuals who unite on the premises of love and truth. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, again, that's why it's so freaking mind-numbing that the level of sophistication of conditioning and hijacking and programming of the brain to take us away from all of that, keep us divided, so we don't understand we have way more in common than we do different. And it's been working for a very long time, centuries and centuries. And, yeah. It's just, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's just frustrating. Pat, you and I were discussing it earlier, and it was just very frustrating for both of us because I was exchanging different news articles about another few people dropping dead, cancel Aretha Franklin's music on fucking Spotify and Apple Music because of the song Natural Woman. And reality's just been hijacked, bro. And it's frustrating. Sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
Well, I just want to wear a t-shirt that says what? Natural man? Should I wear one that just says, like, I'm a fucking man?
Well, there's no such. Yeah.
I'm a man and you're not.
Hey. What you do is you go out and you rock that Got Truth t-shirt, because the Got Truth tour is coming to a city near you, ladies and gentlemen, now that the farm is back. Because we had planned, Pat and I had planned before things got crazy with COVID, I think Offensive Bastards tour, and just like take the show on the road, hang out on the stage, a little Q&A, et cetera, et cetera. But now that the farm is back, we're going to do the Got Truth tour. Pick up your Got Truth t-shirt over at the link we're going to provide this.
Much more important than Got Milk. Infinitely more important to have a Got Truth shirt.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Everyone should have a Got Truth shirt.
And
the mustache has got to be a white milk mustache, but the word truth is in white on the mustache.
It's actually our original logo of the farm, and underneath it is the Got Truth. So doing it. But hey, when you guys pick those shirts up, take a picture of you rocking that shit, and then we'll post it, and you tag us and post it on our platforms, because we got to get
redvoicemedia.com. Go to redvoicemedia.com for that, right?
It's like Red Beach. It's something else. We'll provide the link of
Red Beach Media,
because it's different from where you find the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, we appreciate you guys supporting the farm. But back to Cody, of course.
Yeah, I want to switch gears, Cody. I want to talk about your family history, the lineage, the royal blood, all that good stuff, because I think it's fascinating. So take us back through, all the way back through, and your connections and a lot of the stuff that's connected to that history.
Okay, so I met my father's father a couple times growing up, but that was when I was young, and I didn't really have in-depth conversations. I was just kind of weirded out by it. And one point, it was I was in 11th grade. I was about 16 years old, and I was playing Berwick, Pennsylvania, in a district playoff game. And that day I had the flu. Actually, let me take you back. The week before that happened was actually Christmas, and I met up with my dad, which I really wasn't close to, and my dad took me over to my grandfather's apartment. And my grandfather had Beck's beer, and he started talking about how he's German, and this is a German imported beer. And he asked me if I wanted one. And I'm sitting there, I'm 16, I'm drinking with my dad. and I'm drinking with my dad's dad. My dad's last name is Landry. Okay? Landry is like the second oldest Frankish name there is. And Franks were the original Germans that inhabited the Frankish land of France before Roman influence. Roman influenced the Franks with their Latin language. Now the Romans, when they pushed up into Francia, that's what that was called, Francia, they met great resistance. The Franks actually beat them. And the Romans recognized, like, hey, these guys aren't really savages. They're very smart, intellectual, and they're actually really peaceful people. Let's blend with them. And they did. And hence, Français. It went from Frank to Français or French. Now, that's the blend of the Roman language. One of the reasons why, of the Latin language, one of the reasons why French is so beautiful is because it's a mixture of Latin language, the Latin language, the Romans, okay, with the Franks, the Germans. So, what I'm saying here is if you study the Frankish lineage, okay, and I did, and you study the genealogy trees that my dad's dad showed me, I did, you start to see where you come from. And it's really fucking miraculous because Landry goes all the way back to the Holy Roman Empire. There's a man named Landricus Dunensis, who apparently married a widow who was one of the princesses, and they had children. And Landric Dunensis was the right-hand man of a fella named, I'm drawing a blank here. This guy was the father of the Merovingians. I think he was Mero himself. Merovec, yes. Landric Dunensis was the right-hand man of Merovec. Merovec was the man that the Merovingians were named after. Well, who are the Merovingians? The Merovingians actually go all the way back through where Vlad the Impaler is from. Vlad the Impaler, he worked with the draconian law. His dad invented the draconian law. And the draconian law was, we're going to spread Christianity by any means necessary. We're going to keep out Islam. So what they were doing is they were slaughtering the Islamic as they were trying to push it up, and then they were pushing into Europe and converting the pagans too. They were also killing the pagans or converting them to the Holy Roman Empire. Now, this is what I discovered upon reading.
Hold on. Sounds like America spreading freedom.
Yeah. Once I discovered that I was part of this bloodline, I started reading into it. And that night I had a really weird dream, and I'll get into that dream. I'll get into that dream here in a little bit. We're talking about conspiracies. Let's talk about some weird shit, shall we? So, the night that I discovered that I was part of the Merovingian dynasty, the bloodline, I started to read into it, and I'm like, the United States presidents come from this bloodline. That's weird. I started reading into how George Bush and Hillary Clinton all have a relative in common. And then I started seeing that all the presidents did. And I started reading deeper into the Vlad the Impaler stuff because I always thought Dracula was awesome and Vlad the Impaler was awesome. And then I started realizing maybe they're not that awesome. But one interesting fact about the Merovingians is they created the Da Vinci Code. This is trippy. You've heard of the Da Vinci Code, right?
Of course.
Before I go any deeper into it, give me a quick example of what you know about the Da Vinci Code. Does anybody know anything about the Da Vinci Code? Like what the story is?
Well, it
was just kind of
the Bible and the life of Jesus and all of that.
Okay, perfect.
That he was married to his
Merovingian
his
gal.
mother and all of that.
Actually,
yeah,
he married a Merovingian gal. Well, I'm not married to his.
Yeah, the Merovingians, Jeff, believed that the Da Vinci Code was hiding the fact that they were the children of Christ Yeshua because they believed that he married Mary Magdalene. Why do you think it's called married? I never even thought about that. The word marriage, married. Anyway, they actually believe that they are the children of Christ, the lineage of Christ. Now, in the story of the Merovingians, they believed that one of the grandchildren of Christ was seduced and raped by a female water dragon. Now, when we talk about the devil, they always talk about the serpent. When you talk about the devil or demons, you always envision a reptilian creature with horns, scales, okay? Dragons, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs predate humans, right? If you look at all of these terms, they all mean a very similar thing. Reptilian, fucking serpent, demon, devil. It's all the same thing, right? And Christ himself in the Christian Bible, it talks about the serpent seed and how the serpent seed interjected in the tribe of the Israelites and literally deceived the world. And if you think about it, that could be metaphorical because that's exactly what happens with religion, with politics, with school systems, even your home. Even your home. If it wasn't for television, telephones, if it wasn't for any other outside source, homes would still have love and have spirituality within them. And minds would not be stolen. But because they have television and all these forms of technology, now minds get stolen and therefore the souls go with them too, right? So going back to the bloodline of the Merovingians, they created the Holy Roman Empire. And I have the blood of those men. Now, interestingly enough, on my mother's side, my mother's mother's mother was a Seidler, aka Seithler. Okay? The Seithlers were Prussians. If you trace my genealogy, it goes back to a man named Baron Johannes von Matthias Seidler. Straight up. Baron Johannes von Matthias Seidler. Who was he? He owned the fucking silk industry. A baron is someone who was able to live with the kings and the queens, live close in proximity with them because they are producers, mass producers of products and goods and services, right? They produce silk. What do fucking kings and queens sleep with? Silk, pillows, silk, robes, silk, right? What did the merchants use to spread the fucking global banking system throughout the entire world? The Silk Road. Now check this out. If you study my lineage, it goes back to Baron Johannes von Matthias Seidler. He was obsessed with the Roman Empire. What happened was his three children, Katharina, Dietrich, and Matthias, all decided to believe in the teachings of Martin Luther. They converted to Lutheranism. And so what happened was, he said, get the fuck out. And so he kicked out his own children out of the kingdom of Prussia. He exiled them. But upon leaving, he gave them gold, English gold. Before I tell you the rest of the story, when Baron Johannes von Matthias Seidler died, he left behind over $350 million in gold and assets such as castles and silk, the silk industry, when he died. Remember that. Okay? That was in the 1700s. That's like 3.5 billion, right? Matthias, Katharina, and Dietrich came over on a boat. Dietrich had his leg broken, had his money stolen. Katharina went on. Matthias went on. Matthias was my grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather. He had two children, Benjamin and Isaac. Benjamin and Isaac met a fella named General George Washington. They also met a fella named William Penn, who Pennsylvania is named after. Penn's Woods, Sylvania means woods, right? General George Washington had an army that he was assembling, and he needed help. And how did he get help? Money. Who had the money? They did, right? So Benjamin and Isaac went to their dad, Matthias, and said, hey, we have this general. He's trying to fight the English to create this country, to stop being taxed, basically, right? So they literally gave George Washington a $90,000 loan. Matthias, their dad, said okay to Benjamin and Dietrich, gave the $90,000 loan to them. They took it to General George Washington under two precedents, under two agreements. We'll give you this loan, except Matthias gets to be chief of commerce of the military, meaning he gets to control all the spending. I'm going to give you a loan, but I'm going to control the spending. What the fuck does that sound like? Now, with all that said, Dietrich, he went on, not Dietrich, but Isaac, he went on to own the barracks, and he created all of the brass cannons. And the story is, I don't know how true this story is, but when King George sent over his best friend George, who said, turn in your weapons. The story is that my great uncle Isaac picked them up and threw them in a pile of mud and said, go back to England before I stuff you in this brass cannon and shoot you there. And the legend is that that was the very last brass cannon fired during the Revolutionary War. Now, why is this important? Because George Washington went on to win the war, okay? And then America was started from there. Now, fast forward. Why did my family not get any of the money from Johannes Baron von Seidler? Because he put a 100-year bond on his own children because he was so mad at them from converting from Roman Catholicism to Lutheranism. So all of this information was documented by a German agent. It was the Seidler German agency. The Seidler German agency. They came over here. They were hired to come over here and find the proper heirs of the Seidler family. And we had multiplied so much by then, and two sisters got in a fight and burned up all the documents in a wooden barrel. So our family, our large family, got nothing from that. And so all that money went back to the state of Germany because Prussia fell. Russia took Ukraine. The USSR or Russia took Ukraine, and they took, I think, Poland at the time, and the Czech Republic, and Belarus. And so Germany actually formed out of the fall of Russia. So that $350 million in English gold, where did it go? I think it went to the banking system that was established in Belgium and Germany, aka the Third Reich.
Yeah, and then it kept going from there. I mean, even after the fall of Rome, and into Venice, that's what started the Bank of England. Like all these different things coalesce, like you're talking about. It's fascinating because we just don't ever get into the deep dive on what a lot of this. Some people, are pretty apathetic about it, but I think finding the roots and understanding the roots where so many, especially the banking system comes from, it's fascinating shit, man, because it gets into the geopolitical powers of who's really running shit. And like I said, man, if you know their names, they're not running a thing, man. Got all these Schwab, World Economic Forum. I mean, they're really doing shit. The damage they're doing is absolutely real, but the people who aren't running, holding the puppet strings will never really know. We can allude to them like what we're talking about in this kind of conversation, but again, very seldom will we ever really know their names. But such a fascinating conversation, man.
Pat, fill us in, bro. What are you thinking?
Well, I think what Jeff just said, it's fascinating history and how things have been molded. And when you go back and cut through, all the bullshit that, our history and world history, much of it is straight out a lie. It's just, and once you, like I said, the key for me was reading the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, well over a quarter of a century ago. And that's when everything changed for me, and I started looking at things totally different. And I think that should be mandatory reading for every senior in high school across the country. We wouldn't have any of this bullshit going on if everybody read The Creature from Jekyll Island and knew the history of banking, knew the history of monetary systems and how all this stuff went down. And that's the thing is that it was early on you go, God, why wouldn't they be teaching? Well, that's why they don't want us to know, right? God forbid that.
In a conversation we were having today, Patrick, about the Saudis, seeing it for a while now, different countries, trading groups, et cetera, moving away from the U.S. dollar. The Saudi Arabians talking about willing to trade with China and other companies in monetary units outside of the U.S. dollar. Yes, the Creature from Jekyll Island was a huge thing in 1913 when the Federal Reserve Act was created, IRS was created. To have basically the U.S. dollar be the world's, petrodollar be the world's reserve currency, if you will. And now I think a lot of global powers, and that's another whole larger conversation that we had with, Flynn and other people, are things shifting away from the U.S. as far as that kind of power and moving towards Eurasia. And obviously with China's growth, one belt, one road, we talk about it all the time. But from an economic standpoint, if countries are starting to trade things other than the U.S. dollars, it's a bad sign because it's already going in that direction. But,
hence it'll cause more inflation, hyperinflation. In fact, when the dollar starts to, not be used for the trade of oil. We said this years ago, Jeff, on this podcast, on the Conspiracy Farm, and I'm talking years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever, that we're going to see $10 or more per gallon gas as soon as that happens. That hyperinflation is going to kick in. You talk about, the wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a loaf of bread in, Zimbabwe and everything else, right?
Oh, Weimar Republic, Germany, before, Cody was talking about the Third Reich in Germany came in. Even that, in that Third Reich, even that, all these, like I said, Pol Pot, Mao, Stalin, Lenin, they're always controlled by these larger financial forces. I like to call them the IFC, International Film Company, or whatever, the International Film Channel. It's the International Finance Cartels, Coalitions, whatever you want to call them. That's ultimately what's been running shit since time immemorial, dude. I mean, so oftentimes these world wars, even going back however long, it's always financed by much larger powers, while we plebs
there's answers to this, right?
Nation state versus nation state.
There's answers to this. There are answers to this. There are solutions to this, and this is, I don't know how likely it is at this point in history, but back in the day, people talk about Andrew Jackson and the Trail of Tears, and he wasn't even in office when it actually took place. Am I saying he's a great guy? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is I consider him one of the greatest presidents because he was the only president to kill the World Bank, the central bank. And they tried to take him out. A gunman with 2 Flint pistols walked right up to him, pointed them both at him at the same time, pulled the triggers, and they both misfired. So they wanted him dead. But in the end, he did kill the central bank, and that's when it was kind of the Wild West.
The central bank wound up winning in the end, yeah, for sure, though.
Well, but it was wild. It was, for a while there, it was Wild West of banking. So there were small local banks all over the country, at that time. And so banks could compete against each other for customers. And if they got too stupid and too irresponsible and that bank went out of business, or there was a run on the bank or whatever, that only affected those people in that local area. It didn't affect the entire planet or entire nations and collapse economies and put everyone in poverty. So that's decentralized banking has to be the case. So people out there, who know what's coming, those of you with a shitload of gold or silver or whatever, we've got to do to, base the value of the currency, whatever can be created away from what they're trying to do, that needs to be done. I mean, people seriously need to be talking about that, and the barter system and all the other shit that people are going to be doing.
Man, I know my intuition and what I read and how I can really connect the dots really well. I know so much, but at the same time, I don't even dive deep into it like you guys do. However, I know so much, and I'm going to kind of prove that here. Guys keep talking about Klaus Schwab, and we talked about the Third Reich. Let's talk about the Nazis, right? We talked about Klaus Schwab. The word Schwab means noble people. The word Aryan means noble people, okay? The Nazis claim to be the noble people. But the Nazis aren't really who the world thinks they are. And I'm not going to get too deep into this. But if you just want to know where the word Nazi came from, why don't you ask a Nazi? I'll leave it at that.
Well, and there's the thing. I think there's a lot of people. Look, here's the thing. Again, when I talked about the Jesuits hijacking a religion, I think that there's a certain sector, and a lot of Jewish people will tell you that there's not. I don't think it's all across the board when you use that term or any other term. I think there's just certain sectors of religion that are bloodlines that are all connected. They're all connected. They're not of that religion. They are of Satanism, right? I'm not saying because, historically speaking, we know that there are just certain bloodlines. And they have transitioned and moved and positioned themselves into different places in the world. So it's not about religion. It's about belief systems and what they really are. And again,
it's
the Jesuits,
the force.
The Jesuits are as much Catholics as I am a Black American.
Well, if you look in the actual Christian Bible in multiple verses, Christ says, "Beware of those who say they are blank, but are not, for they are the synagogue of Satan." And it's said numerous times in there. So let me get off of that. Let me go into this because you keep saying Klaus Schwab, right? Klaus Schwab is from the Ashkenazi lineage, okay? And Klaus Schwab, okay, runs the World Economic Forum. We all know that. He's the guy that wrote the Great Reset. He's the guy that is talking about the cyber attacks that are coming, and they will come. Thank you at least for giving us a hint. Thank you, right? But let's look at this, right? You guys know about the pact about Antarctica, how the Nazis made a pact with the rest of the world about nobody's allowed to go to Antarctica, right?
I've heard about it, yeah.
Okay. Pat, you want to fill us in on that before I go on a tangent?
The reason I haven't dug deep into Antarctica, is just because it starts to get into the flat earth stuff and all that other stuff. And I'm not even going flat earth.
I don't go there.
I'm not even going flat earth. I think there's some very, very strange things.
Not Eddie Bravo.
What's that?
Not Eddie Bravo.
Look, Eddie doesn't.
I love Eddie Bravo. Shout out
Eddie.
to my boy.
Yeah,
but he doesn't even believe. I don't think he even believes in flat Earth. He just says that shit. And it's like Alex Jones. It's like Alex Jones. Instead of saying, "Hey, the chemical atrazine has been proven in laboratory tests and in the wild to convert frogs, male frogs, and rats from male to female. They actually grow female genitalia." Instead of saying that, he says, "They're turning the frogs gay." Just to throw a curveball at everybody.
So let me get into this. The Nazis, I think, were the ones that established this treaty, and everybody else signed it. Why would everybody else sign it? Because all these countries are all owned by the same faction, and we just all go to war to basically appease them, to make them happy. But it looks like, hey, America's fighting this place, and this place is fighting this place over this. They're the enemy. They're the enemy. No, we're all fighting each other for the enemy. So check this out. If you Google New Swabia, okay? New Swabia.
I've heard about that.
I discovered this on my own because I was Googling the names, Klaus Schwab. It's Norwegian and German for New Schwabenland. It was a disputed Antarctic claim by Nazi Germany within the Norwegian territory claim of Queen Maud Land, and is now a cartographic name sometimes given to an area of Antarctica between 20 east and 10 west in Queen Maud Land. New Swabia was explored by Germany in early 1939 and named after the expedition ship Schwabenland, itself named after the German region of Swabia. Okay? Like many other countries, Germany sent expeditions to the Antarctic region in the late 19th and 20th centuries. It goes on and on and on to talk about this. New Swabia. Swabia means noble people. So new noble people. Let me get into my theory about Antarctica. It is no fucking secret that the mountains that we can see now with frost on the top of them were once glaciers. New York, for example. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I go to the fucking Finger Lakes, bro. Those mountains are pretty high. They were once all underwater. They were once glaciers. So catch my drift. Global warming is intentionally being done to flood the countries, okay, so that the ice up there floods, because when the ice up there floods, what's going to happen is the rest of the world is going to go underwater. Most of it is going to go underwater at some point, maybe not near our time, but all of that inside the ice, under the ice, is preserved. What's under the ice? More oil, more coal, more diamonds and gold and silver, and more natural resources. And Antarctica is pretty fucking huge, man. So if that was to melt, what would it be created? Mountains. The highest point in the world would then be, could be Antarctica. Now, I'm not an expert, a geographical expert. I could be completely off. But that is my theory, that there is a ton.
Well, they definitely can still mine for that shit through the ice right now. They do ice core samples.
So you see what I'm getting at?
I don't know how deep. You're talking like miles. Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? The Bible says that the world will end in fire. Well, the world as we know it. So if Antarctica was to completely defrost, there is a ton of natural resources under there. And if they already don't want us eating natural food and having our own farms, why the fuck would they want us there? Which is why they said nobody should go there.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I just had a conversation, ironically, and I told Jeff this on our previous podcast. Talked to a guy that's got 3 doctorates. He's a genius. He showed me a bunch of different inventions, and he's legit. I mean, he's legit one of the smartest human beings I've ever had a conversation with. And he wanted to talk. You could tell, I think he probably is a widower. He's lonely. He's retired. and he told me some of the corporations that he was, employed by, and some of the crazy shit this guy did. But when he talked about climate, and I only talk about this because I asked, was it Mr. Fuller on our podcast, Jeff, where I said, there's not enough water on the planet, whether it's ice or water itself, to flood the planet. But we do know that there's literally 1,000 times more water underground than there is on top of the surface. So it had to come from under. And he said, yes, bingo. That's how the flood happened. So anyway, given that, during my conversation with this gentleman, and again, for the people that listened to the episode and heard this before, I apologize, but this is important, that he said, going back 600 million years, his friend, who's a genius as well, when one of the smartest guys you've ever met in your life says, this guy's a genius, you can bet your ass he's a genius. So he said, look, he's been doing this for years. He's ecological scientist. He's one of the most heralded. He's written more documents, he's recorded more data than anybody else on the planet. He's the most knowledgeable guy there is. So he goes back 600 million years in this graph. He's showing it to me, and he goes, right now look up on your phone how many parts per million carbon there is in the atmosphere currently. I don't know if they'd even give us a straight answer right now, but I think it's around high 300s, somewhere in there, 300 parts per million in the atmosphere. And he said, if you were to take your fingers and smash them together like this, there's about probably 150, 170 parts per million inside your fingers. So he said, the oceans, when they get heated up, when the earth has gotten to its warmest, that agitates the water, the molecules in the oceans, they release more carbon into the atmosphere. And he said 550 million years ago, there was 7,000 parts per million in the atmosphere compared to 380 now, right? So we are now, then on the graph he showed me at the end of the last ice age, 150 million years ago, that we were at 180 parts per million in the atmosphere of carbon. And he said, he looked at me real serious and he said, at 150 parts per million, all plant life and all life on Earth dies. Period. End of story. We were at 180 at the end of the last ice age, and then it started to go back up after that, right? But the carbon does not go back up until 800 years after the Earth warms. It takes that long for the carbon to go up. So he said then, he got to the end of the graph, current day, and us being at, the high 300s or whatever it was, I don't remember exactly. And it's still headed down. And he said flat out, literally us driving cars and releasing carbon into the atmosphere literally could save the world. And he said, so now they're building pipelines to sequester carbon underground, to take it from a gas and turn it into a liquid and pump it into the ground underneath particular states. Yes. I can't see it. What's it say?
Can't see that.
I'm just adding to what you're saying. Just keep talking.
Okay. But that's the point, is the carbon could be and should be way, way higher in the atmosphere. So the things that they're doing is actually the opposite. He just basically proved to me what I've known all along, that what they're doing to sequester carbon and pull carbon out of the atmosphere is absolutely damaging.
You just, as you're talking about carbon, I had an epiphany in my head, and I was trying to show you that. So I knew this about carbon for a while. You know how the elites keep telling us that carbon's so bad, right? Carbon this, carbon that, carbon footprint. The human existence leaves such a nasty carbon footprint. Oh my God, we got to get rid of you. And then humans start believing under hypnosis, yeah, we're bad. We should just off ourselves, basically. They're literally going to convince children that they shouldn't live as long as they should at one point, probably control their lifespan.
Or convince people to not have more children.
Exactly.
So people are having less children.
So check this out. I'm going to bring up cryptocurrency real quick. Cryptocurrency, they're saying, causes carbon emissions to just simply mine it and use it, right? The fastest cryptocurrency the cheapest cryptocurrency and the cleanest cryptocurrency in existence is owned by Ripple Labs, who is currently being sued by the SEC, and the coin that they use is called XRP. Now, Billy Gates, Klaus Schwab, and all the elites know that this is going to be the one world currency because they talk about it all the time. Elon Musk uses gematria in Twitter. When he said much wow on Twitter, I don't know if you remember, he posted much wow on Twitter. Put that in the gematria calculator. It says buy XRP. So let me tell you something. Going back to cryptocurrency, they want to use XRP, and the selling point is this. It's the cheapest, it's the fastest, and it's the cleanest carbon emission. Now, the carbon element itself, what is the element of carbon? The element of carbon, or the carbon atomic makeup, I should say, the atomic makeup of carbon, the atomic number of carbon is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. 666. The mark of the beast, the carbon footprint. Are you not drawing a conclusion? Let me help you. So, Klaus Schwab, all these fellas are talking about XRP and talking about how we need to use a digital currency that is going to be friendly for the environment. They're blaming us for the carbon footprint as they produce a bigger carbon footprint in their fucking jets alone.
For sure.
Right? Now check this out. That patent I told you about earlier, the COVID-19 patent for the COVID testing patent, which was created on October 15, 2015, 4 years before COVID-19 was discovered from bats, right? In the COVID-19 test back in 2015, if you look up the patent, talks about using a biometric system on a microchip. And this biometric system would be able to tell if you have COVID right away or not. And not only that, this biometric system would be able to tell if you had the vaccination or not by simply scanning it. Boom. Now fast forward to Billy Gates' patent, which came out in 2020. Bill Gates' patent that came out in 2020 was 2020-06-06-06. And it's a microchip. And this microchip does what? It reads your biometric data according to the cryptocurrencies that you're spending on that microchip. It's on their website. This isn't a lie. This isn't fantasy. It's on their website. Both of those microchips on their website, and they coincide with each other. So, carbon, protons, 6. Electrons, 6. Neutrons, 6. Think about that.
Keep talking. Well, we're made up basically of 4 things. Oxygen, water, carbon, nitrogen. That's the human body, and decaying organic matter and microbes, right? So the fact that they want to get rid of carbon, now you have to understand this. Again, for organic nutrients to exist, they have to get these metals and other substances have to be pulled up out of the ground, elements, into a plant and bonded with carbon molecules to keep the human body healthy. These lunatics are talking like carbon is an evil substance. No, it actually creates life and keeps us healthy by bonding with other elements, and our bodies actually being able to use it because it is in the organic state at that point. So people have to pull their heads out of their asses and wake up and stop buying this shit, right? I want to wear shirts that say percentages of my body are made up of, this percent oxygen, this percent water, this percent carbon. Fuck your carbon footprint theory and story. Right? I'll put my carbon foot right up your ass.
Jeff, what do you think about all this?
That's it. That's the shirt.
No, I mean, it's just.
I'm going to put my carbon footprint in your ass. Hold on.
Not truth.
Hey. No, that's it, dude. I mean, that's definitely, I'm with it. No, I mean, it's just, it's just a fascinating conversation. I would love, that's what I miss about, not that I didn't love doing the show we were doing, the self-defense work, but it's like, this is just that open form of just exchanging ideas, dude. Agree to disagree. Not to say I disagree about anything, but it's just, I love hearing people theorize on, like, a lot of things you just explained. I'm going to look into it, but it's just so fascinating when you start talking about and I'm not 100% on board with shit like gematria and shit like that, but I do believe there is a lot of hidden clues behind a lot of things that we just don't know to look for. And oftentimes they say they almost have to tell you what they're doing before they do it, or
which they do.
Which they do normally. But I'm just saying, even like they talk about when you talk about the Da Vinci Code, like they used to say, Da Vinci used to put a lot of messages within the design of the pyramids, in sacred geometry, the numbers, the mathematics speak to a larger understanding of whatever it is, the circumference of the earth, etc. Anyway, I just find these conversations fascinating, dude. That's why I love having.
Have you ever smoked DMT?
I haven't.
Have you, Cody?
Joe Rogan.
What's that?
I'm just quoting Joe Rogan. Have you ever smoked DMT?
Oh. So have you had ayahuasca or any of those things before, Cody?
Dimethyltryptamine.
Okay, DMT.
Not ayahuasca.
Okay, DMT. So,
well, DMT is the active ingredient in ayahuasca. Yeah.
Well, and it can be created in the human body through meditation.
And our body produces that shit naturally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, our body produces that shit naturally.
During breath work.
DMT, I could go deep on, even though I don't have too much experience with it, and I have tried it. But we all tried it because it's inside of our bodies, right? DMT is dimethyltryptamine. And dimethyltryptamine is a chemical that is produced in the pineal gland, which is actually ocular. Your pineal gland is actually an eye. It has the same structure of an eye. And it rests in the middle of your brain, right in your forehead. Now, the pineal gland is surrounded by a watery base. Now, I want you to think about this. A lot of ancient cultures believe that the pineal gland is the seating site of the soul, where the soul rests, right? Where you, as a conscious being, rest. And I believe that. Now, the pineal gland has a watery surface around it, like the kind of flat earth theory, or maybe like a blood cell, or a plant cell would have a watery membrane around it. That's
or like an eye around it.
Yeah, semi-permeable. Certain things can come in, certain things can come out, right? Now, you mentioned that we are water, right? We're mostly water. We are also electric. Our soul itself, our conscious energy is electric. And if you think about Wi-Fi connects the entire world, but can you see it or can you touch it? No. However, Wi-Fi does travel like that, and it does connect us with information. What does that sound like? Thoughts. Okay? So before I continue on the pineal gland, I do want to bring up this theory I created too. Now, when the internet first came out, Jeff, what did we use to connect to the internet?
What did we use?
To connect to the internet.
It's old school shit. Bang, bang, bang.
What was the cord called?
Oh, the Ethernet, yeah.
Ethernet. Google the ether right now. Google what ether says right now. What is ether? I'll tell you as you're Googling it. Ether is defined as the space between the clouds and the Earth's atmosphere. All right? So my theory is we didn't create the internet, the Ethernet. We tapped into it. And what the ether is, I believe the ether is collective consciousness. I believe that collective consciousness is up there. Instead of us telepathically connecting to it so that we don't need technology and so that we're not slaves of fear and we're not controlled, instead of that, they give us computers and they say, hey, use this computer. It's going to connect you via the internet, right? So now we tap into this Ethernet, call it the internet, and now all we're really doing is we're taking consciousness from the ether and we're absorbing it into the computers. If you think I'm fucking crazy, what do you think Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink? He's trying to absorb your soul into a fucking USB and stick it in the back of your head so that when you die, you can take that and put it into a robot. Now, robots don't need water. They don't need food. Robots can intergalactically travel, go to other planets, and survive because they don't need to breathe. Right? So
that's a whole other conversation about the transhumanism, but no, you're right. That's essentially they're tapping into what is known as essentially like the Akashic records, which is like the real universal internet. But what they're trying to give us via like the Neuralink and shit like that is kind of like what China does with their internet. It's more intricate and very controlled. Whereas, now it's, and I don't know how I feel. I do know how I feel about fucking Elon Musk and that whole thing, but I think that's very fascinating.
So DMT, right? So I'm going to get to that, but I want you to focus on the Ethernet, right? Here's the hints they drop. You talk about hints, right? Apple. What is Apple's symbol? It's a fucking apple that has a bite out of it. Forbidden fruit, the fall of man, right? Okay? Now, check this out. When you use Apple to upload information, you upload it to where? The cloud. Okay? Now remember, we are 70% water. So is the earth. But we are electrical beings. Our consciousness itself is electrical. Our heart is beating on an electric pulse. Which is why when you die, you get zapped with a defibrillator, right? So, when you think about us being water and electricity, water attracts electricity. So do metals. Okay? I'm going to fucking really plant this in you guys' brain here. This is my theory, dude. So, my theory is that consciousness itself, which is above the clouds in the ether, is absorbed into the clouds, and the clouds rain down on the earth, and the electricity hits the earth and spreads energy throughout the earth, and that creates living creatures. Okay? The whole, remember Zeus throwing thunderbolts at the ground and fucking creating life and shit like that? Right? So what happens was collective consciousness is now hitting the earth, and us human beings, for some reason, God-given, we have higher consciousness greater than anybody else. We have imagination. God created man in his likeness, his character, and his image, his imagination. We're the only creature on earth that has an imagination like we do. Why? We're the only one that we know of, right? So check this out. The fucking clouds rain down and shoot down electricity. What are we? We're water and we're electricity, right? So they're giving us hints by uploading the information to the cloud. When we upload our gigabyte information, our videos and our fucking photos and whatever we type, this is going to get uploaded to the fucking cloud. It's eternally up there, right? So the whole point I'm trying to make is that consciousness is this concept that people don't really think about, yet that's who we are. We are fucking conscious beings, and we're like, does consciousness really exist? No, we're just a fucking flesh computer walking around randomly. That's bullshit. And the fact is, the pineal gland, which sits inside of your fucking brain, is covered in water. And how do you dumb a motherfucker down? How do you dumb somebody down? You calcify their pineal gland, the water around the pineal gland, so that that DMT that is inside of you doesn't go in and out, which gives you super fucking spiritual powers, discernment, intuition, the ability to think for your fucking self, the ability to create the reality around you from your fucking thoughts, from your daydreams, bro. And so by solidifying the pineal gland, it traps your spiritual powers, right? Because when you die, you literally release DMT. This is proven. When you die, you release DMT, and then you go up a tunnel, and the tunnel is light. And I know that for a fact because I smoked the shit. And when you smoke it, everybody says the
It's a very common, yeah.
Everybody says the same shit. You end up in a tunnel of a kaleidoscope, like shapes and colors, and you've never seen them before, right? That happens, and this weird calmness comes over you. And chakras are real, dude. Chakras are up your spine, right? I felt my tailbone ignite with energy and went all up my spine, and I thought to myself, I'm dying, but I'm at peace, right? And when that happened, I saw these beautiful colors and shapes looking straight down a tunnel. It was like looking straight down a tunnel of a kaleidoscope. And this white light started to come from my peripheral vision from the right, and it was warm, and it was embracing me. It was the greatest fucking embrace I've felt in my life. Like, I was like, I'm dying, but I'm being accepted by God. And right when that was about to happen, the tunnel lifted up like a cannon. And when that happened, this like weird triangular shape came down, like the Eye of Horus or whatever, and it was green and it had teeth, and it started saying, come closer, come closer. But it wasn't speaking in words, it was in my head.
It was subliminal.
And now, check this out, no joke. An energetic, this is probably not going to really get me any clients, but it like an energetic looking pinkish purplish vagina shape came over, and the demons were basically telling me, you don't want to come here. You like the flesh too much. You like the physical world too much. Don't come here. But at the same time, they were telling me, come closer. And when that happened, dude, the white light went away, and all these shapes started turning like this demonic feeling, demonic colors. And I started crying, dude. I started crying with my eyes closed, and I was saying, Yeshua, 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 please save me. God, please save me. God, please save me. And eventually I felt calm, and I opened my eyes, and I was like, fuck that, right? But then I listened to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan said, yeah, I had something like that happen before. You have to really think positive. You have to really think positive before you do it. And then what's going to happen is this dark energy that you see, these weird colors and shapes are going to turn pretty. And then it feels inviting. And then you just keep hitting the pen and keep hitting the pen and keep hitting the pen until you blast off. Like never blasted off. But I was literally aimed at the universe and I was ready to fucking go. And yes, it is a tunnel of light.
That's interesting. Because people's, it's pretty much universal. The people that say that they've not even heard from, other people who have had near-death experiences or whatever you call it, where they've left their body and gone through the experience. And it's always, massive amounts of knowledge that they absorb. They ask questions, conscious thought, and it's answered right away. And it's impossible to explain to human beings. Everything that was spoken to them, all the understanding that just instantly appeared in their brain and their understanding level. And I asked one of our good friends, Jeff, who told me, he said he hadn't told anybody but his wife about his near-death experience. But anyway, I asked him, I said, was it like answers as vast as cities, but you understood it all immediately? And he said, yes, that's it. That's exactly it. And so, yeah, that's something that's consistent with that. And we have gone all over the place with everything. But no, as far as the geometric shapes and other things like that, through breath work, I have experienced that, and I've experienced other things that are very, very interesting, to say the least. And past, loved ones, family members, things like that, I've experienced very real, what I consider very real interactions, so to speak.
Well, and I think, what some of the things that we've touched on before, we got to wrap it up here because I'm missed dinner already and I'm getting the evil eye, but whatever. It's since we were a kid, we get all these different experiences piled on us, which creates more and more disconnect with us from our essence, if you will. And some people can use breath work, meditation, religion, whatever it is. And, going back to William Blake, when he talked about when the doors of perception are cleansed, things will appear as they truly are, infinite. And oftentimes we but it helps to facilitate our understanding of our infinite conscious awareness through things like ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin, etc. So I think it's important sometimes to definitely have huge respect for psychedelics and hallucinogens, because I think it allows us to recalibrate and reconnect, slow down, shut up, quiet ourselves, and reconnect with essence, which oftentimes brings about a lot of unpackaged trauma, if you will. You got a lot of people who are going down there dealing with stuff that they haven't dealt with, and these kind of things help them unpackage it. And people stop drinking, people stop smoking, people go hug their mom they haven't talked to in however long. So anyway, just the larger concept of what we're talking about today is, getting out of our own way a little bit, understanding that things aren't ever what they seem. And sometimes, man, we just got to slow the train down a little bit, quiet ourselves, quiet our minds to kind of reconnect with essence, because we are so disconnected right now. Going back to what we talked about almost at the beginning, like, don't call me, text me. Like, no, dude, sometimes, man, I need a fucking hug, man. I need a hug from a fucking human being, man. Brother, sister, friend, loved one, you know what I mean? Just that human connection. And we're missing that more and more. And I think society is geared to keep us more desensitized and detached from that, detached from each other, detached from essence. Sorry to go on a ramble there, but Cody,
no
man,
problem.
I can't thank you. You're coming back, dude. We got too much to talk about and shit. This is not a one episode joint right here, dude.
Well, I wanted to say something real quick. You made a post the other day and I was like, fuck, I want to reach out to him. You said you need a hug, right? I did a podcast last night for a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses that left the religion because the religion was using hypnosis on them to keep them trapped in the religion, and people left it, and because they're under hypnosis, they ended up killing themselves and whatnot. It was really crazy. And one lady cried on air. She came on the phone and cried on air for an hour. And at the end of it, she was just saying, I just needed a hug. I just needed a hug. And I just needed a hug. And I let that lady talk the whole time. And some of the viewers were getting annoyed. And I was like, hey, listen, I'd rather every one of you get annoyed than this lady fucking actually hurt herself. She has nobody to talk to, right? So real quick, I do want to say this on the subject of hypnosis, because I'm a hypnotherapist. I would love to give you a free session and a bunch of free sessions to show you the power of this, because this is going to allow you to hug yourself. Pat knows what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go personal with what Pat says, but I do want to ask Pat, though, without getting too personal, Pat, if you don't want to, how did you enjoy, because you did say you did it, how did you enjoy your hypnotherapy session, your first one with me?
No, I enjoyed it a lot, you know, and I've been hypnotized before, one time before by a good friend, Nick Spahn, who's been on our show as well. Nick's very good as well at what he does, but you were very detailed in explaining a lot of things, and that, you know, all the feelings, the accumulations of trauma and all the other stuff that can affect us when we, you know, for me in terms of, you know, being able to overcome a lot of things, win a world title, train world champions, train law enforcement, military, stand in front of television cameras for 15 years on major networks. I overcame a lot of stuff. But through, you know, life and not paying attention and allowing negativity from outside of me to get in and then affect me, instead of blocking that or correcting the situation, things like that, you know, I have to be, I believe that the hypnotherapy is going to help, you know, because I definitely feel like my subconscious and unconscious mind, you know, has been affected. I'm not crazy. I'm not insane. But I just feel, I feel negative emotions too much. I do, because I think that comes with trying to be a perfectionist as well. I won world titles and trained a bunch of world champions and did a bunch of things, and I expect to fucking be good at everything. And I'm not always good at everything. And it's frustrating for a person who expects to be good at everything. So yeah, there's a lot in there. And I think that when I look around at the people just here in my hometown of Bettendorf, Iowa, you can see it on their faces, man. People are hurting. People are struggling, you know, in a lot of different ways. And I think, yeah, everybody could use this.
Yeah.
And honestly, Cody, I appreciate you reaching out. You know, my post the other day, and I'm not one of those like, no, I'm fine. Like, sometimes I'm not fine. And that was the whole point of, it wasn't like anything bad's going to happen to me, but it's okay to not be okay. Not every day is going to be fucking rainbows and sunshines and some shit. And just me personally, you know, it's just been a crazy last year and a half, 2 years. And part of me didn't even, I would speak about it to Pat, but I would never do, you see so many professional victims on like Facebook and social networking, and it's like they almost abuse the fact that like we all have shit going on. So the fact for me to even say something like that, it was more just like, dude, it's all right, man. Cause I know, especially dudes, we just think we have to power through life shit. And we don't, man. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to fucking cry. It's okay to need a hug. You know, it's just not okay to stay not okay. You know what I mean? And the whole thing of the vulnerability being our strength, we gotta like say sometimes like, nah, I'm having a bad fucking day. Pat and I have talked a lot about each of our bad days. So when I was doing, I was just trying to almost a PSA of like, dudes, this is all right, man. It's okay to fucking not be okay sometimes. Just, you know, whatever it is, whether it's religion or spirituality or ayahuasca or hypnotherapy, just, it's not okay to stay okay. So hopefully people who are listening to this know it's okay to not be okay. Hopefully you have a support group, people you can talk and reach out to, you know, when shit gets fucked up. Because, you know, my mom reached out and my daughter, she's like, are you okay? And she was, and it's not funny, and I really don't mean this, the Ellen DeGeneres DJ who seemed fine, but obviously took himself out supposedly. So my mom was like, you said you were upset and the Ellen DeGeneres guy killed it. I'm like, Mom, I would never, ever do that. But you just never know if someone will do that until they do that. But anyway, thank you, Cody, for reaching out when you were offering your services.
Yeah, and how can people, sorry, Jeff,
yeah.
Go ahead, finish.
No, I was just beautiful for doing that. Cause it's like, you know, a lot of people reached out when I did say that, you know, just sending love and all that. Absolutely, man. Anymore as I get older, man, it's like you give love, receive love. Again, it's okay to not be okay. And thank you for reaching out. A lot of people did. I didn't mean to scare anybody or any shit like that, but it was more kind of a PS thing. And we're all trying to survive out here. It's tough in the fucking streets. So like Pat was asking, how do we get a hold of you and, avail ourselves of some of your services if you need them?
And our listeners who want to reach out to you and go through the experience of hypnotherapy, because it is worth it. It is worth it to delve into these things. And people can say, Yeah, I heard you on the Conspiracy Farm. Let Cody know that, that sort of stuff.
Okay, so if you look right down there, it says at vital_visions_. That is my Instagram. My email is vitalvisionsllc@gmail.com. Again, Vital, my last name, you can see it, visionsllc@gmail.com. Okay? And I do want to plug my buddy here. I am a certified hypnotherapist through Dom the Hypnotist, who helped change my life with the power of hypnotherapy multiple times over. Okay? I had very bad depression, anxiety, frustration, rage, all these attributes that a fighter would have growing up. And it wasn't until I met Dom that I was able to release all those negative emotions and those limiting beliefs that were causing those negative emotions. And those negative emotions that were driving bad behaviors and bad results in my life. And when that happened, I literally started making more money than I made before because I had confidence and motivation. And everybody's always so focused on the money because we live in this financial system that keeps you afraid of money. And people have these money blocks. But the way you beat the system is we can't go arrest all the bankers ourselves. I mean, it's never going to happen. I wish. But you can learn how to ethically make money by helping other people. And you can make a lot of it by helping a lot of people the right way. And the way we help people is, again, we brainwash people to think for themselves. We're not saying, here, let's take a pill that's going to give you 300 fucking negative side effects. And the side effect that you're going to get is suicidal thoughts when you're taking the pill because you're suicidal. What the fuck? Right? We brainwash people to think for themselves. And so if you want to get a hold of me or you want to get a hold of Dom, it's at domthehypnotist.com. It's dom.thehypnotist, dom.the.hypnotist. I am at vital_visions_. We give free consultations, which means a free session, which is an actual hypnosis itself, guided meditation that's going to help you start to begin the healing process. And there are a lot of macho men out there that don't think they can heal. All right. But I have acronyms. I always use acronyms. HIP. H is to heal because you need to heal first. I is improve and P is perform better. Here's where you got to heal first, Jeff. That unconscious mind that you have, that everybody has, is holding on to all this pain for two reasons. One, the unconscious mind only cares about survival. And so if you put your hand in the fire and it gets burned, your unconscious mind says, don't do that again. Except if the entire world stopped putting their hand in the fire after the first time, we wouldn't have firefighters, would we? What that means is we got to take risks to live the lives that we want to live, Jeff. We got to put in effort. We got to put in intention, and we got to clear out all of the lies and the fear that's in the back of our mind, which is preventing us from being our highest fucking self. That's exactly why God says, do not fear, because fear is a sin. Do believe to become. And so faith fuels fruit and fear fuels failure. Faith fuels fruit. Get that in your heads. So if you want to change, if you want to get rid of depression, if you want to get rid of anxiety, if you want to get rid of other nasty thoughts in your mind that are not serving you, come talk to me. I'll fucking do it on the very first session. If you want to continue because you want life coaching, if you want to fucking make extra amount of money, you want to achieve certain goals, we can help you achieve your goals faster and easier than you could ever imagine before. I know because I was a client and I still am. So hypnotherapy works. And if you're not using hypnotherapy on you to better your life, somebody else is using hypnotherapy on you to fuck it up.
So again, vitalvisionsllc at gmail.com and then at vital_visions_ afterward.
We will have all of those links in the description of this video. Cody, text those to me just to make sure we have them locked in. And again, ladies and gentlemen, take control of your life, man. Command your space. Nothing changes, man. You know, not everything, like I said, has to be rainbows and sunshines, but, you know, take responsibility for your own happiness, dude. But, Cody, man, you are the man. I know we've been trying to put this together for a very long time. We've talked kind of messages off and on throughout the years, but thank you, bro. You are a beautiful soul doing the Lord's work. I so appreciate it. Patrick Score, get our boy. Any other final comments, gentlemen?
CodyVidal.com. I forgot about that. I want to link you guys on my website. So again, send me a link. I could put you in my website. I designed the website. It's www.CodyVidal.com. You can also book a session with me there. And I want to link you guys on there because I want like-minded individuals. within my service. I want this to get out. I want there to be a revolution of minds who think for themselves, a revolution of people who think for themselves, a revolution of good souls who change this world for the better. And I know that's exactly what you guys want too. So thank you so much for having me on.
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
Thank you, Cody.
Patrick. That's
Sorry,
it. Patrick, Jace.
You broke up. You broke up.
No, I was
again.
just saying, Patrick. No. So much love, Patrick J. Farmers, faithful farmers, welcome back, man. It's so good to have you guys back. Cody Vidal, ladies and gentlemen, peace and so much love. And you know how it goes. There will love y'all.
Peace.
All right. Thank you, Cody.